Madam, what are you doing? A lady screamed. Come, oh, this woman is trying to bury a baby here, the woman yelled. Madam, whose baby are you trying to bury? The woman said as she walked up to the other woman and held her by the wrist, preventing her from continuing what she was doing. The lady started screaming and calling for help, and in a few seconds people gathered. Teresa and Mandu were very good friends. In fact, they grew up together. They attended the same high school and eventually attended the same college. The two friends were inseparable until Mandu met a man. Mandu fell head over heels for Essien, and before long, wedding bells were ringing. Essien was working in an oil and gas servicing company and would often spend 2 weeks on shore and 2 weeks offshore. While they were still planning the wedding around Essien's schedule, Teresa, Mandu's friend, got engaged to an actor called Tolu. Tolu, Teresa's fiancé, was a fine man. His romantic scenes in movies always left females swooning and men jealous. He was every woman's dream, and immediately he placed an engagement ring on Teresa's finger. The wedding plan started in full force. Tolu was the only son of Madam Margaret, and he was a proud mama's boy. Tolu wouldn't take a step without his mother's approval. He saw his mother like God in human form. Teresa was too in love with Tolu to care about his close bond with his mother. In fact, she thought their relationship was cute. And so, she accepted his proposal with so much excitement. All the plans Tolu and Teresa made during the wedding had to be passed through Madam Margaret for her consideration. Teresa didn't mind because, from her observation, her mother-in-law-to-be had good taste. Even though Mando got engaged before Teresa, 6 months after Tolu proposed, he and Teresa got married. Regardless of the fact that Essien was yet to fix a date for his wedding with Mandu, Mandu was still excited for her friend. Exactly a year after Teresa got married, Mandu finally got married, but Essien had to leave for work soon after. The two childhood friends were now married and very happy until life threw a curveball. Though Essien had to leave immediately after his wedding for work, eventually he came back home to his wife for his 2 weeks break. 2 weeks after, he traveled again for work, but this time something had changed. Mandu was pregnant. Though news of Mandu's pregnancy was supposed to be good news, Teresa took it really hard. She felt so bad that her friend she had gotten married before was now expecting. It was even worse when Tolu's mom started putting pressure on her. She would often drop snide comments like, "Maybe you need to go check yourself." "I thought you were calling to give me some good news," she would always say to Teresa. Mando would often encourage her friend to relax and let go and wait, knowing that a baby would come. Words that were easier said than done, especially when Tolu's attitude towards Teresa started changing for the worse. He would come back home late, and whenever Teresa would ask him where he went or why he was coming back so late, he would just ignore her. Whenever he had to travel out of town, he would hand over funds for the upkeep of the house to his brother to disburse to Teresa, his wife, when she wanted it. 2 years after, Teresa was still yet to conceive. Mando, on the other hand, had given birth to her first child and was already pregnant for the second, even with her husband that was barely around. One day, an overly concerned colleague told Teresa about a church whose pastor and wife were especially gifted in miracles. Teresa wasn't a religious person, so she quickly thanked her colleague for the concern and went about her business. But when she got home that day, she knew she needed a miracle. Madam Margaret, her mother-in-law, had brought a young lady into her home. By the time Teresa got home that day, the young lady and her mother-in-law were making lunch for her husband. When Teresa asked her mother-in-law who the lady in her home was, Madam, she simply hissed and walked away. Teresa became apprehensive. She couldn't understand why her mother-in-law would bring a stranger into her home and treat her with so much disregard. Teresa didn't want to believe what her mind was telling her, so she confronted her husband. Who is that woman? She asked Tulu. Tulu looked her in the face and said the most painful words Teresa had ever heard. She is here to do what you have not been able to do for 3 years now, Tulu said and walked out on her. Teresa cried out her eyes. The words that came out of her husband's mouth were like daggers to her soul. That night, Tulu didn't come back to her bed. Teresa was surrounded with luxury. Her bed was the most comfortable bed money could buy. But sleep was far from her. The following day, Teresa ran to her colleague as fast as her legs could carry her. She told her colleague to take her to the wonder-working pastor and wife, Isap. The colleague gave her the address of the church, and on her way to the church, Teresa stopped by her friend's place to tell her about this church that she wanted to attend. Mando was uncomfortable with the idea. She tried encouraging her friend to try seeing a gynecologist, but Teresa insisted that since she married her husband as a virgin, she was medically sound. Mando, seeing her friend had made up her mind, insisted that she would go with Teresa because she knew that since Teresa was very desperate, she would agree to anything. When they got to the church, they saw more than what they had bargained for. The semi-uncompleted building was filled with people. 80% consisted of women. The testimonies from the members made Teresa giddy with excitement. But Mando was very concerned. She felt something wasn't just right. There were women who had prayed for husbands who were smiling triumphantly with their spouse by their side. There were barren women who had prayed for children who now had their babies with them. Even people who had prayed for jobs were now smiling, saying that the God of their pastor had given them jobs. Teresa was so sure that she was at the right place, but her pregnant friend Mando was just not impressed. When it was time for the prayer request, all sorts of requests were being tendered for prayers. Barren women, job seekers, single people, everybody lined up to be prayed for. Teresa quickly joined the people who stood at the altar for prayers. Few days after, Teresa came back for special prayers. But this time she was being ministered to by the pastor's wife. The pastor's wife told her that she would need to undergo 40 days prayers and fasting, and she would need to stay at the church during the duration of the prayers. Teresa didn't know how she was going to go about it. She didn't know what she would tell her husband. How would she explain her absence for 40 good days? Pastor's wife, seeing she was lost in thought, told her that some prayer warriors in church could be given some funds for their upkeep so that they could come stay over at the church and pray on her behalf. Teresa quickly agreed. The pastor's wife told her that it would cost her 500,000 naira. Teresa quickly offered 1 million naira. The pastor's wife, who was also a pastor herself, assured her that her prayers would definitely be answered. She also told Teresa that she would have to come on the 40th day for midnight prayers. When Teresa told her friend, Mando was skeptical. She kept on insisting that Teresa needs to see a doctor first before she goes on any kind of 40 days fasting. But Teresa had made up her mind. Still, Mando then insisted that she would go with her for the midnight prayers. Teresa told her friend that she was heavily pregnant and didn't need to go with her. Mando insisted on accompanying her, telling her that she was only 7 months pregnant and still had 2 months to go. And so, it was safe for her to join her for the midnight prayers. On the set date, they both drove over to the church. They came in just when the prayer session had started. The pastor stood up to pray. Soon, people were speaking in strange languages. The two friends watched as people started falling and rolling on the floor. Before they knew what was happening, a lady who was being prayed for started spinning. The lady spun to where Teresa and her friend were standing. Mando quickly shifted to give her more space to spin as much as she wanted. But the woman bumped into Mando and hit her on her stomach. Mando cried out in pain and collapsed. Blood started trickling down her legs. Teresa screamed out for help, and everyone gathered to help Mando and Teresa. The pastor's wife insisted that Mando be taken into one of the rooms in the church for immediate care. She warned that since the church was located in the outskirts of town, that Mando might not make it to the nearest hospital. Against her better judgment, Teresa agreed, allowing the church members to take Mando inside. Mando had gone into premature labor. After a few hours, one of the women came out and told Teresa that Mando had delivered a baby. Before Teresa could even ask her about the welfare of her friend, the woman walked away. Teresa hurried in to see her friend. She found Mando weak and still bleeding. Mando asked about her baby. Is the baby okay? Tessie, where is my baby? Mando kept asking. Teresa tried her best to calm her friend down, but Mando was frantic, insisting on seeing her child. Teresa herself was curious, wondering why the baby had not been brought in to see the mother. She also wondered why nobody had cleaned up her friend. Teresa went out to find the pastor and his wife to collect her friend's baby. But as she stepped out of the room, she saw people walking towards a particular direction. People were shouting outside. There was a lot of commotion. Teresa rushed out to see what was happening and found a crowd gathering around the woman. She quickly followed and stopped the woman that was running in the opposite direction. What's going on? Teresa asked. The woman replied, they caught the pastor's wife trying to bury a baby. The woman replied. Teresa's heart dropped. Could it be Mando's baby? Teresa was completely terrified. As Teresa moved closer to the crowd, she tried to push her way through to get to the front to see the pastor's wife. As she got closer, her hands began to tremble and her heart was racing really fast. Is it Mando's baby? Is the baby dead? What else is the church hiding? Share your thoughts in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe to this channel for intriguing African folktales. Remember to share this story with a friend or two that you feel will like it. Thank you.